This edition of Mac Voices is brought to you by MacPaw, the makers of CleanMyMac 10. Your Mac as good as new. Find out more and download your copy at macpaw.com/podcast. Welcome to Mac Voices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. This is the second part of our discussion on how long tech should last with Charles Edge, Brett Terpstra, and Ken Ray. In the first edition, we tackled the concept in a general fashion and focused a little bit more on personal computers and those kind of devices. This time, we expand that discussion and get into a broader coverage of some of the devices that may or may not start to fall into this category. So with that, here's Charles Edge, Brett Terpstra, Ken Ray, and myself. Charles, you brought up, though, a really good point that I think I want everybody to hear and remember. And Ken, maybe we're going to do part of an episode of the checklist here. But the idea of some of these upgrades being security oriented, or we need to have the higher powered hardware to take care of some of the security issues, is I think a really important one, and it's a point I've made to people when they're buying their computers. It's like, look, your machine does exactly what it could do the day that you bought it. In fact, it can probably do a little more. But if you bought it 15 years ago, that's kind of where it is in time, and so you have to expect that you can still do all those things. And if you want to freeze your machine, never put it on the internet, that's great. You can run that, but just stock up on spare parts to make sure that you can keep it running. So it's not like that. I don't think that they age, they rot or anything, for the most part. It's just that at some point, if you want to do things that are modern, you have to have modern hardware.
Yeah. So 2 points on that. One, I cut my teeth on COBOL, and apparently I have a skill that's in high demand right now.
Congrats.
Because so many states, yeah, right. So many states are still running old mainframes or VAXs, and running that code to process insurance, because the refactors, like in Minnesota, they tried to refactor the driver's license system, and they went like $100 million over budget, and it was just this insanely horrible thing. And finally, they found a piece of software on a shelf and decided to do that instead. And then the other thing, like one of the other projects that I have is I'm writing a book on the history of computers as well. And along that line, I've been trying to get screenshots and get different machines that I can put into production. And I've been looking for like a digital equipment PDP-8, and they go for like 50 grand a lot of times on eBay. And the reason that they're going for this much money is because there are companies who run flight reservation systems, or there are state organizations that run those driver's license systems, and they're buying those machines on eBay to have for spare parts, because they know that the electronics in those old devices are kind of going bad over time. So.
Yeah, the whole COBOL thing is interesting, because that was my first programming experience. Now, nobody's going to hire me, believe me, to at the level I was at. But just the idea that some of the stuff doesn't get replaced, doesn't get upgraded, and that's why with your CTO hat on, should offices be turning over their computers in 3 years, Charles?
I would say for personal computers, almost every company should plan for a 3 to 5 year refresh cycle, and most of the time 3. Anything below that, and you got screwed. Anything above that, and that's just gravy. But most companies that I've worked with, we plan on refreshing gear every 3 years, period. So.
I ask because as I was going to say this earlier, but the machine we're sitting in front of, I think, is right now 6 years old. I don't know how it got to be 6 years old. It seems like I just bought it, but and listen to me, that's part of the problem here. That, I can't believe it was just 6 years ago, or it was a whole 6 years ago that I bought this. But already I'm starting to find just a couple little things that don't work quite as well as I would like them to. And then you realize that it's because it's a 6-year-old machine.
Yeah, I feel like in a larger company, what we run into is support cost for gear that's over 3 years outweighs the cost to refresh the equipment. You know, so the support cost for a computer, I normally factor as between half and 2/3 of the total cost of ownership of that device over its lifespan. So if the failure rates go up, whether it's on a hard drive or on screens, or these days with everyone having laptops instead of desktops in most companies, it's just to have a user without a device, or to have to ship them a device, or all the different support things that go into that, it's just not worth it anymore, to try to plan beyond 3 years.
So you're advocating for 3 years. Brett, you're saying that you don't go back with your software more than 2 software iterations, which
2
equates to
OSs,
about.
But Apple doesn't usually, like the oldest Apple hardware can usually run up to, I don't remember where their cutoffs are, but supporting 2 operating systems ago is supporting 7-8 years worth of machinery.
Okay, so you're
because
supporting
a 5-year-old machine is still running Catalina. It, like, if the cutoff for your machine was 10, 11, you have a pretty old machine. Like, it's definitely not just 2 years of hardware that I support.
You're not going 2 computers back. You're going 2 operating systems back.
Right.
Okay. All right. So
and my 2012 iMacs are running Catalina, so they're still supported.
How well are they running Catalina?
As well as you would expect a 1.7 gigahertz dual core processor to run Catalina with 16 gigs of RAM and an SSD. It's not perky, but it works for what I need it to do.
You're not doing 3D gaming.
No.
AR gaming.
Which, thank you, Charles, because I did want to get to that. And you three, I think all 3 of you are known gamers to one degree or another. No?
Not me.
Really?
No,
I like games. I like puzzles.
If you get a D20, I'll roll for dexterity. But if you're talking about something, and no, I'm not much with the controller.
Oh well, because
if this were audio only, you could just roll for charisma. So
I got that. It was a man. I don't even roll for that. People know.
See, and I'm not a gamer, so I have no perspective on the gaming situation. I know that gaming seems to be on the leading edge because of the demands that gamers put on the machines. But I don't know. I mean, do gamers refresh every 3 years, every 2 years, every year?
I would say up until they hit a certain age, yeah. Disposable income goes down when you have children, maybe. I don't know. But I definitely, I would say that's more of a Windows thing for my life. And when I happen to live close to a Fry's and I could just go out and buy new SSDs to refresh certain aspects of the computer rather than replace the whole thing, that was, I was refreshing parts a lot more than the full computer. And, I don't do much gaming on the Mac, so that's a whole other, world for me.
So I'll pull it back to the 30,000 foot level and using Sonos as the whipping boy here, and only not a bad way, but just a sort of an example. I mean,
what for Sonos?
No, it's the thing that started me thinking about this and sort of looking around and saying, okay, I have to start looking at my speakers the same way I look at the computers. We've already had to start looking at our cameras the way we look at our computers. That just because you spend, $600, $700, $900 on a camera doesn't mean that there's not going to be a significant difference in 2 or 3 years. And that wasn't the case a while back. So now I'm looking around my entire universe, and I'm sort of reassessing how much I use things, and when they're going to become obsolete or become unworkable. Whereas before, I've got a lamp in the living room that's probably 25, 30 years old because it doesn't do anything other than turn on and off. And that may
But
not
if
be a
you
great
put
example,
dimmers, it's not a horrible example. If you put dimmers in, would that lamp still work? Because not all work with various currents and types of currents. So, like I've had to replace plenty of fixtures in my house as I've been upgrading it to be able to completely be a smart home. And that this is the third house I've done this to, but every now and then I put a dimmer in and I'm like, oh, the light's flickering no matter what kind of bulb I put in it. So I have to replace the fixture, and that $30 project that I'd planned on doing just became a $90, if I go fancy, who knows how many dollar project, so
Home automation's actually that's actually a really interesting area to talk about for this, because I mean, X10 home automation still works, but if
Z-Wave
you
still
buy,
works. Yeah.
but it doesn't work with HomeKit. It doesn't work with Amazon without some hacking. So
yeah, or some kind of head unit to sit a bridge to sit between.
Which is what one of my minis actually does, is bridge older Insteon and X10 devices into HomeKit using HomeBridge. But those devices, you either have one that is your 20-year-old lamp that just keeps ticking because you don't need it to do anything else, or you're buying new devices every couple of years because the protocols keep changing.
And now that your speakers are smart speakers, basically, I mean, that Sonos is a computer. That HomePod is a computer. So now you're entering the era of planned obsolescence. Like I wouldn't plan for a HomePod to work for more than 5 years. I would hope to get 3 more years out of the one that I bought, though.
That's an invisible contract.
Right.
But this is all going to, I think, it should be affecting our purchasing decisions as far as how much you're paying for what and how much you use it. The home automation thing, I don't think I've had anything so far that has gone obsolete on me for home automation. At least it's not jumping out in my memory. So, but I know that time is coming, and it's been a factor in thinking, do I want to invest in, let's say, a smart thermostat or a smart this or a smart that really I can get along without. I mean, it would be convenient, maybe, and it certainly has a lot of geek level appeal for me. But I may not, I'm starting to balance some of those decisions with the fact that I know that they're not going to necessarily last me as long as the non-smart device.
See, I predict there will be an iteration of HomeKit in the near future, HomeKit 2.0, that will be backwards compatible, but your current devices won't be able to do the things that the new protocol can do. It'll require new hardware, and then there will be an upgrade cycle for everybody, and you choose whether you want to or not, and that's the way a lot of that software hardware combination goes. And that's an area where it's like 50% marketing, because is what they're offering so cool that it's worth buying new hardware, or do you just want to be able to do the new cool thing, which is a lot of what Apple and related devices run on, is people who want to do the newest, coolest, even if it maybe isn't technically worth, $3,500 for the laptop that can handle it.
This edition of MacVoices is supported by MacPaw, the makers of CleanMyMac 10. If you've been around the Mac for any length of time, there are software titles and publishers that you learn to know and trust. And if you haven't been around the Mac for very long, it's time you started that process. MacPaw has been part of the Mac scene for more than 10 years, as has its flagship utility, CleanMyMac 10. That alone says something about both the company and the product, but let me tell you a little more. CleanMyMac 10 is the utility you want when you want to optimize your Mac for peak performance. Using the Smart Scan, you can delete system log files and caches that are no longer needed. You would be surprised at how many old abandoned files might be clogging up your Mac. CleanMyMac 10 has a simple, clean, easy-to-understand interface that guides you through the process. It even has a malware check to help protect you from any software that the bad guys might have snuck into your Mac. And best of all, you can download a free trial version of CleanMyMac 10 to check out all the features for yourself. And that's what I want you to do right now. Visit MacPaw.com/podcast and download your own copy of CleanMyMac 10 today. That's MacPaw, MacPaw.com/podcast to get your trial version of CleanMyMac 10. Run the smart scan and see what CleanMyMac 10 can help you get rid of. CleanMyMac 10 at MacPaw.com/podcast. Take it for a spin. Thanks to MacPaw for their support of MacVoices. One thing I want to make sure we got to, and that is the idea, and it's that $18 million settlement that Apple just did for quote unquote breaking FaceTime. And I don't even know what the numbers, Ken, maybe you remember because of doing macOS Ken, of the issue of slowing down the iPhone, which allegedly was, according to the bad guys, well, excuse me, no, scratch that. According to the plaintiffs, was just little color commentary there, was alleged to sell more iPhones, and yet Apple's explanation was that no, we slowed it down so it wouldn't degrade the experience of the new stuff. And I mean, that really of course, class action suits bother me anyway. But where do you stand on that?
Well, it's funny because earlier you said something. You're like, well, let's not even go to the messaging, and I think the messaging is the thing. There was my iPhone 6 started crapping out on me, and I took it to Apple. I took it to an Apple store and talked to a guy. Barely looked at it. He said, "Well, it's a corruption in the software, so you need to just wipe it and reboot it." And so I found a way to actually get information off the phone that I was not able to get off the phone using Apple's systems, right? Spent like $25 on something that was well reviewed on CNET so I could copy everything off. Totally reinstalled the operating system, and he was wrong. And I don't know if he was intentionally wrong or if he wasn't intentionally wrong. I don't know if they were just saying, well, just tell people this because that'll make them go away. I kind of doubt that. At the same time, it would have been great if he had looked at it a bit more. Then I ended up breaking the screen on that phone, and so I had the whole thing replaced under my insurance thing, whatever. So that whole thing was handled poorly. I mean, for it to come out that they were slowing the process instead of saying why, because here's the thing, I might have held onto my phone for a tiny bit longer, just gotten the screen replaced and held onto it a bit longer and gone ahead with a slower thing so that my phone wouldn't just crash on me. That one I don't honestly remember that much. The Vernetics thing I've just had to go back over again this week, the $18 million settlement, because that was in Apple News. And that one, again, kind of rubbed me a tiny bit raw because apparently the whole reason they were doing it was because they didn't want to pay the licensing fee that Vernetics was requiring because it turns out Apple did violate their patent. And so then Apple came out with another way to do it that wouldn't violate their patent, but that did mean turning off FaceTime prematurely for a certain number of people. At that point, it's exactly what Charles, it's exactly what Charles was talking about earlier. They ran the numbers, and they decided it would cost less to go ahead and piss off these people. In the end, it cost them $18 million. And the bad guys, as you put it, are getting nothing. That's the thing that's just absolutely horrible. That whole story, that's 9 years of somebody's life, and all they got was like $7,500 for the two named plaintiffs. You and me, Chuck, we get $3 if we're even part of it, and the law firm got $5.4 million. That's a whole other thing. But the messaging around the slowing down the phone thing, all that stuff, I don't know if there's a good way they could have done it because that's just a time then for everybody to go, see, they're trying to mess you up, so you'll buy the new one. And so then they're quiet about it. And then people say, see, they're trying to mess you up, so you buy the new one. I don't know that there was a good way on it, but I think it probably looks worse to get caught than it would have to go, so listen, next operating system is going to be great. This is one thing you might not like, but let me tell you why it's a good idea. Because Tim Cook is one of the few CEOs that when he talks, people listen. Like across the board, people listen. So it's not like the message wouldn't have gotten out had they done the messaging. Maybe.
To put that in, to put a little economic context around that, though, like if they had to have 3 more Scrum teams or developer teams testing, or QA teams testing for those older devices to make sure that they knew exactly what it was, and then they went into product documentation. Like, that cost of doing that for older devices of that magnitude is probably greater than $18 million. So the bad publicity is priceless, but also, like, they probably made money by not doing that on the balance sheet, if that makes sense.
Sure. Whoa.
Okay,
Sorry.
It's Tim calling, I'm sure.
No, it's actually I don't know what that is. Sorry about that.
So maybe I made a mistake earlier. I mean, maybe messaging is part of the story here. That that when situations like that arise, should the hardware company just come clean and say, "Look, this is why we're doing it"? Is it acceptable to say that this is a business decision and here's why? And is that going to open them up to even more lawsuits? It was not a rhetorical, guys.
I'm so lucky to not be in that position to make that decision. Because no matter what you do, you're wrong. So
For me,
I wouldn't.
For me personally, it was all about the messaging with the HBO thing. It was the telling people that this thing that they're breaking is for the best possible experience. Don't mail me and tell me that, I'm going to make this not work for you for the best possible experience, because I would argue that leaves me with a worse experience. You can say it's for our bottom line. You can say we have these exciting new things that we want to show. Unfortunately, that's going to mean, but you can't come to me and saying, listen, it's going to be good for you that you can't do this anymore because it's going to be best, I mean, even say it's best for everybody else, because at least then you're not lying to me about it.
Or at least to give you the ending of Westworld, because that's all you're really after, right?
That's great. That's fantastic. Yeah. Maybe that was part of maybe that's what they were doing. It's like, well, these people watching these, old Apple TVs are probably watching old shows anyway. So tell you what, we're going to put The Wire on Hulu. How will that be? Does that do it for you? And yes, by the way, that does it for me personally. And my TV is fine. I don't even think I have the HBO thing. It was just what Chuck has against Sonos almost compares to what I've got against whatever that was.
No, quite the contrary. I'm a huge fan of Sonos.
I was kidding.
I know, but I mean, maybe I should make it clear that no, I love my Sonos and I would recommend Sonos to anyone. It was just that was sort of my bellwether that made me change my thinking about the way I view a lot of the different electronics around my house. And like all of you, I have a lot of electronics around my house. And so now, okay, I'm looking at it through different eyes, not better or worse, just different, just more aware.
You're totally right. When we buy connected devices, things that previously we would easily have assumed would last our lifetime, and you get a good watch, you have a good watch for 20, 30 years. You buy an Apple Watch and suddenly you're not surprised when 3 years later you need to buy another one, and it probably costs more than your good Seiko watch. Your speakers, like my speakers, are not smart. They have wires, but I expect them to last for another 10 years easily. If I were to buy Sonos, yeah, it would come with this unwritten expectation that these are going to have to be upgraded constantly now. And that's kind of... There are very few appliances in my home that I think would benefit from being connected devices. Things that aren't directly related to lighting and temperature, for example, that I'm not willing to sign that contract and say, okay, I'm going to turn this into from a piece that I've had for 10 years, I'm going to turn it into something on an upgrade cycle. Like, there's a lot of things I don't want to take that step with.
Yeah, I've just before COVID-19 hit, I thought I was going to have to buy a new refrigerator. And so I started looking at them, and right away they wanted to show me the internet connected refrigerators. And it's like, no, I don't think so. No, I don't want my refrigerator talking to anybody. But that started passing through my mind that, okay, how long is the software on this refrigerator going to last? And if it goes south on me, or if they stop supporting it, then what is my choice?
And
Does
do I
my
really want a refrigerator that can be part of a DOS attack on, our DNS servers?
It depends on whose DNS server, but that's another story.
It was everybody's.
Yeah.
That's not your choice.
Darn. But yeah, so that was one where I had made, and I didn't have to do it happily. I didn't have to make that purchase, but now you start to think about some of those things, and I think that's just an awareness that we all need to have.
Yeah.
I don't know if we solved anything, but this was fun.
We got a lot of opinions out there, though.
Yeah. Well, I thought Charles' comment about the transparency was interesting, that he doesn't want to be in that position because there is no right answer.
Yeah, that would be hard. I'm not going to judge anybody who's in that spot. It is the responsible thing to notify if you know. So, like, I'm glad Ken got an email from HBO,
I didn't get an email from HBO. No, I got nothing. It was just fine because they don't know I exist, dude. That's fine. I don't care. I got an email from the guy who's selling the Apple replica race car, though. So I got that going for me.
$500,000?
$499,000. Yeah, but it's not even the one. It's one that looks like the one. But I understand.
Did you respond like you can have a free advertisement on macOS Ken in exchange for the car?
You think I should? Yeah, that's what I should do. I'll paint my name on the side. Get that rainbow crap off there. I don't even know what that is. I'm going silver, and that's it.
Cheese grater.
Nice. Drill holes in the side of it.
I at least want to be able to drive it. I mean, come on,
I think you can. It's actually we'll do this on the other show, Chuck.
All right. Hey guys, thank you. This was a lot of fun, and I knew this would happen. I knew if we put this group together, there would be some really good opinions, and we'd have some laughs too. But I want to go around the horn and make sure again everyone knows where to find you when we're not here having some fun. So we'll just keep the same order. Charles?
Crypted.com, KRYPTED.com. That's the easiest way to find me.
And the podcast is?
Oh, The History of Computing. So that's on all the podcast things.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Good to see you. Thanks for being here.
You too, man. Thanks.
Brett, how about you?
All of my podcasts are on hiatus. So right now I'm just at brettterpstra.com and TT Scoff on literally every social network there is.
Great. Thank you. It's good to see you.
You too. And Elle says hi.
Good. Tell Elle I said hello back. Oh. Mr. Ray, where can they find you, as if I didn't know?
MacOSCan.com is the best website. I do a daily Apple news show called macOS Ken. I do a daily Apple talk show now called In a Few Minutes. You can find both of those wherever you find podcasts. And then I do also produce a show for Secure Mac called The Checklist. It too is available wherever you find podcasts, or you can go to securemac.com/checklist.
Great. Thanks so much, Ken.
Thanks, Chuck.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is Mac Voices. We may not have given you some answers, but I hope we gave you some things to think about. That's sort of the goal here, is to make you think a little. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with Mac Voices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.